Let's start this week with the economy. Now, despite poor economic outlook forecasted by state economists last year, Kentucky has seen a recent boon. Now, Governor Beshear announced earlier this year that state revenues had exceeded projections. And this week, the governor announced that the state revenues for July were 29% higher than the same month last year. Now, he says we need a new forecast.
Because of that nearly record-breaking month and because of what we're currently seeing in our economy, today the state budget director, John Hicks, issued a letter calling for the consensus forecasting group to meet.
Now, gentlemen, I want to start with this question right there. What do we make of the strong economic projections so far?
Well, obviously that's good for Kentucky, but certainly the way we align the budget to meet the things that we need to do have to fit hand in glove. For instance, certain things are allocated for specific things, and something comes out of a general sense they can draw from, but we want to make sure that there's sufficient money and that it's characterized correctly so they can draw that money to meet that need.
So we've seen, again, the governor call for the consensus forecasting group to come back in. What do we make of that call here?
Yeah, I just hope that this group has better data than they did last year, because they egregiously underestimated what our revenues would look like. In the fall of 2025, they estimated that our revenues would be $625 million less than what we ended up with. And that demonstrates that this was kind of a waste last year. I hope that they have better data, because the reality is our budgeting process, our tax policy, it's working. We saw a surplus of $320 million this year. We are on track to abolish the income tax here in Kentucky, and we're doing that while still maintaining essential services. It's showing that what the General Assembly here is doing, it's working. It's ensuring that our Commonwealth is becoming a more prosperous place to get a job and raise a family.
Have we seen the forecasts kind of miss the mark, so to speak, to this extent before?
Well, you know, you're predicting the future, and there's all kinds of dynamics that are involved in that. It's not unusual for them to miss the mark here and there. Sometimes they're over, sometimes they go under. This time they went under, so you make an adjustment. I don't see anything strange about that. What I am happy about, though, is that we are bringing in record levels of income, and that portends well for the future. And the question I have in mind is, how do we do that? Do we just, the reference has been made to eliminating the income tax. I don't know what's on the other side of that, because we're not going to always have these kind of robust circumstances to deal with. So one thing I do like, though, is the fact that we have held back a certain amount of money so that we can meet contingencies. But we ought to be very cautious about how we proceed in the future.
Is there something that Democrats might have their eye on, especially with Governor Beshear using some executive action to fund certain programs? Is there anything that Democrats would have their eye on?
Well, you know, just recently you had this issue with the Medicaid program, for instance, as to whether there was sufficient funds to be allocated to that particular piece, and the governor had to take actions to deal with certain funds that they thought would not be available for that. Those funds, fortunately, due to his actions, are available to that program. We're going to have to come back and straighten that out and make sure we're on the same page to make sure we don't get in that situation again. So it's not just about the money coming in. It's how we use the money, it's how we frame the money, it's how we direct that money. And we have to come back from time to time to adjust that. I don't see anything unusual about that.
Now, it's a Republican-authored budget based on some of those forecasts from last December. Is there any appetite among Republicans to maybe go back in and reopen the budget?
That would be a question for the entire legislature. I'm just one member, but I want to be clear in terms of this assertion that there was a Medicaid crisis. The governor loves to create a crisis and then claim to solve said crisis. The Republican budget and the reforms that we made allowed for more Medicaid funding to come into Kentucky than was offered in the House Democrat leadership proposed Medicaid budget. And that's because of the responsible reforms that we made to cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse, make sure that these programs are actually going to the intended recipients that the law says should be getting these, so that way we remained eligible for the federal funding that put us even above the governor's proposed area on this. In terms of reopening the budget, there's conversations to be had in terms of that, but realistically, we need to realize that there are a lot of programs out there, and I'm not talking about essential services, but there's just a lot of fat to be cut And what that allows for us to do is have more money in the pockets of the everyday Kentuckian to take care of their needs. We are in an affordability crisis. We can't deny that. But one of the best ways to do that is to ensure that people have the resources to get what they need.
I want to ask you both really briefly, when we talk about, trusting the data and then trusting lawmakers to spend Kentuckians' tax money responsibly, how do we go about instilling that trust at the General Assembly level?
I think one of the first points that we have to have is a commitment to transparency. One of the most embarrassing numbers that I saw whenever I first got elected, and this is a problem across both sides. The overwhelming majority of our spending is in what's called the base. The budget doesn't outline everything that we're spending on. And that is where the overwhelming bulk of those issues are. It's in the base. Returning to a zero-based budgeting model, making clear that we are having line item proposals in our budgeting process so you actually know where your tax dollars are going. That is one of the first and best ways to ensure that our state government is truly serving the people and that you can instill trust in them.
Yeah, same question on
Yeah,
that
well,
trust.
let me go here. It's more than the base, and I agree the base is very important, obviously. The bulk of what we do is in the base right now. It always historically has been. I don't think anything's changed there very much. But the way we make money available, whether we have flexibility for the executive side to use those funds or not, is debatable. Even in the Medicaid piece, we may disagree on that particular issue. I would strongly disagree, in fact, that flexibility was not extended to the governor with respect to the Medicaid budget. If you go into the fine lines and the way we structured it, it did inhibit his ability to use certain funds. So he did what he had to do, and I applaud him for that. But that's not the problem. The problem is in the legislature itself. We need to come together and have our heads together, whether you're Republican or Democrat or whatever it is, transfer clear capability to the governor's side so this does not happen again. That's just an example. Now, if we're going to project for the future, we got a lot of things going on here. The future is not promised. Although this looks rosy right now, the fact of the matter is that it's not going to be like that all the time, and we ought to be conservative when we start talking about how we're going to get rid of the income tax thing. That concerns me. Now, if we can do that and get away with it, that's fine, but we better prepare and start talking about what we're going to have to do if that doesn't work out in the future.
Well, a lot to watch out for. We'll have to ring the closing bell on this discussion for right now.